I want to talk about two things, and that's brain trash and systems. So I'm about two years into my business, got lots of lessons learned that I'd like to kind of share with everybody. So the first thing, when I talk about brain trash, it's basically what I'm thinking, what's going on in our heads. You're probably wondering what an IT guy, how does this guy, I'm not a psychologist, what's an IT guy going to teach me about proper thinking, if you will. The second part I want to talk about are kind of like lies that I told myself in those first 2 years. I think that thoughts can be very limiting to people, particularly when you're going into an uncomfortable position like a business owner. You can't know it all. And then the third thing I want to talk about is business systems. And I want to talk a little bit about that because CMIT is actually a franchise. So part of the franchise is kind of, you're paying somebody to establish a business that's already been, those systems are already in place. And I feel very blessed as a franchise that I have those systems. So I don't feel like I've struggled as much with that as a true entrepreneur would. A little bit about myself, again, kind of going back to that plain thought, I'm retired Navy. I retired in 2003. Grew up in a small town in Western Pennsylvania, where my first love at a very early age was computers. My father told me that computers were nothing but a pet rock. They were a fad, and that people will always need healthcare. So you need to join the Navy and get into healthcare. And that's what I did for the first 20 years of my life. The military turned this little skinny, long-haired boy into a man. Spent a lot of years, with the self-discipline, the courage, strong work ethic, and getting a real strong sense of mission. Really had kind of helped me look at how to drive, the passion of careers and applying my will to the life to get things done. Unfortunately, 3 years after I retired in 2006, I hit a pretty good mental, physical, spiritual bottom. My transition into the civilian sector did not go well. So I got myself into recovery. And that's really where I think that my introspection can be a benefit to other people, because in recovery, particularly in early recovery, you really have to kind of pay attention to what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So, the self-talk, when I came in, I was nothing but a piece of crap. I wasn't going to get any better, right? There was a lot of that negativity, a lot of self-image, self-esteem issues. The integrity of really, I didn't like myself. I didn't know who I was. The self-acceptance. And part of that, what I really love about self-acceptance is when I can accept myself for who I am, it's a lot easier to accept you. And then in the recovery movement, we talk about the hula hoop. So you put a hula hoop on the ground, you stand in there, and everything within that hula hoop you can control. Everything else is nothing but an illusion of control. So those kind of core values in early sobriety helped me kind of redefine and shift my perspective for further on in my career. So that's really when I kind of relived my passion for computers. I went back to school for computers. Again, it was my passion, and I'm a strong believer that if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. I swear I haven't worked since 2006. I've followed my passion, which is computers. I think that's important, but to recognize that your passion comes with advantages and disadvantages to that. One of the things, 7 years into this journey of careers, it came very, very easy for me. Within 7 years, I literally had large companies flying me around the country to do hardware project management, technical project management. Um, where that really helped me was in the corporate world. It's you can call it politics, if you will, but in that institution, in that environment, it really gave me an opportunity to kind of combine both my military aspects, my recovery aspects, and be able to really kind of apply these principles in all my affairs, my ability to assist. And one of the things that I really kind of was beneficial was in the military. It's a very dominant leadership skills. You bark orders and you expect it to get done. It doesn't go well in the civilian sector, but in the recovery community, it's more of being service to others. So getting outside your head and helping others. So during the corporate, those years where I was traveling and all, it was a nice shift from the dominant leadership personality to more of a servant leadership and how can I help you? And I really believe that shift in mentality, that shift in perspective is what made me very successful in the large corporate worlds. It was never about, let me show you how this was done. It was more about like, how can I help you, succeed in this project? And then I did realize after a while, we'll talk a little bit about my lack of networking skills, but I will tell you there's not a huge difference between corporate politics and networking and marketing. So after I came off the road, I joined a franchise system. CMIT Solutions is a managed service provider. We're an IT company for larger company, small to medium-sized companies with large technical needs. What I loved about the franchise system is I wasn't starting from scratch. So when you buy into a franchise, they basically give you the tools, the processes, the structure. Really don't see myself as an entrepreneur. I think probably everybody here in the room probably thinks of themselves as an entrepreneur. Not for me, not really, because this isn't my own homegrown. I didn't start it from scratch. All I did was I took somebody else's idea and I've spent some time implementing it. One of the other benefits of being in this franchise is I have a phenomenal success coach that early on we talked every week about what was going on, and it was pretty much kind of a built-in mentor for helping with the businesses. So one of the other things about the franchise is we have a system of, there's 270 franchises nationwide. The real benefit of that is I have people ahead of me. I've only been in business 21 months. We have, franchises that have been out there for 20 years. So it's very good to be able to kind of talk to the guy ahead of me and say, hey, what can I expect here? In the same instance, reach back to the new guy that's just getting started and to be able to help them. So that has been very beneficial. And I just don't see, I would like to see more of that here in the Ocala area. And I kind of stress that about my past, mainly because I wanted you to spend a few minutes kind of looking at your path. We've all have difficulties in our life. We've all done things that are good. We've all done things that are bad. I think for me, it was vitally important to look back at my past and do an inventory and only bring those things that are going to be a benefit to me in my business. So I would suggest, or I would recommend to you all, if you haven't done kind of like a personal inventory of, right, you do that with every employee that you hire. You look at what are their good traits, what are their bad traits, right? I highly suggest you do that with the owner of your company. Look at what are you bringing to this company? What are some of the things that you personally may have some limits or opportunities for growth as a business, business owner. And then one of the last things, I love this quote: "Don't let your rearview mirror get bigger than your windshield." So, it's a small business owner. I have a tendency of focusing on what I've done wrong and not what I've done right. And I think that's very important to occasionally come back every month, 3 months, 6 months, once a year, go back and kind of look at what you've done in your business, pat yourself on the back for the things that you've done right, and then turn around and kind of focus on those things that you think you could do better in the future. Kind of lies, and more lies. I found myself in early starting up this business, telling myself that I just recognized that weren't necessarily true. And I wanted to talk to you all about these, because I think most business owners, they get into the business, there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of learning. You got to take all of your past experiences, kind of put them all together and look at, how you can do things better. And my number one lie I would tell myself would be that I'm too busy. So everybody knows that when you're in the startup mode, you have a 1,000 things that need to get done, and they're just not all going to get done in a day. So part of that process of, bear with me one second. I needed to move this over here to. One of the things I wanted to kind of talk about when I talk about I'm too busy. Bear with me one second. I wanted to get my notes out here. There's a book. A gentleman's name is Rory Vaden, and it's Procrastinate on Purpose. And the very first paragraph of his book, he talks about stop telling yourself you're too busy. That's just self-induced stress. It's not doing you any benefit. And to really, if you're to kind of look back at your day, at the end of the day, you kind of do an inventory. You weren't that busy. You spent time on Facebook. You had an extra 10 minutes in the coffee line. You get rid of your cable, get rid of Facebook, throw away all your books, and then tell me you're too busy. So that's just a mind trap. It's a lie. Do you tell yourself that you're too busy? Kind of the cure for that, if you will, is that instead of telling yourself you're too busy, how about saying you're doing the best that you can today? And one of the other mentalities, and I think most of you have probably heard of that, in the recovery movement, we talk about one day at a time. So in early business, particularly now, it's a good time to talk about, foreseeing the future and where's my business going to be in 1 month. A lot of groundlessness, unknown about, what the future holds. You can go down that road if you want and make up those stories in your head that you're going to get through it fine, or you can make up the stories that you're going to crash and burn. Neither one of those are going to be true. If you really look at it, it's going to be what it's going to be. And just get up and do the best you can every day. And kind of a mentality is some days you're the windshield and some days you're the bug. And you just wake up every morning and you get back at it and you do the best you can that day. They're not all going to be great. They're all not going to be sucky. Second thing I kind of wanted to talk about are feelings or facts. And this was a good one for me. And Julian actually touched on it kind of earlier. I have a tendency of thinking what I'm feeling is true. And what I am feeling are really, it's a reflection of what I'm thinking and vice versa. So my thinking fuels my feelings, which fuels my thinking. So it can go a vicious cycle. I can spiral really quick. A little lady cuts me off on the road and it makes me angry. I can spend 20 minutes following that story about doesn't she know who I am and yada yada, all that negativity. Or I can recognize that that's not doing me any good, lean away from it, right? I have no business with, I have no clue what she's doing in her life. One of the other things that is kind of nice that I've heard is emotions are nothing more than the music that you're focusing on. So if you're thinking negative thoughts, don't expect to have a positive outlook. That's pretty easy to sit here in my own bedroom and tell me that. But I think that Josh alluded to it, and most people recognize that knowledge is not going to do you anything. It's the application of these principles in your life that are going to be beneficial to you. One thing I wanted to talk a little bit more about was fear and kind of kind of a good spot here, right? We talk about the anxiety of the future. Kind of a lovely quote that I loved is that courage is not the opposite of fear. Courage is the ability to continue in spite of the fear. So as we go forward, right, look at it as courage to continue to keep doing what you're doing and keep plugging away. And one of two things are going to happen. It's either the economy is going to get better or it's going to be worse. Both of those outcomes are really none of your business. Like, you can't control that. So you know, my advice to you is to stay out of that story. The opposite of fear is curiosity. So I can look at I can look and go 3 months down the line, right? The business has crashed and I got to fire employees and I'm $1 million in debt, yada, yada, yada. That's not really, right? That's what fear is. If I look at it like, I wonder how this is gonna, right? I wonder how this is gonna unfold, right? And then I can play a little bit of a game. Like, maybe when I cannot pay my employees, maybe that's when I probably need to, right, shut the doors, or just play with it. Like, I'm curious how this is all gonna unfold. Any way that it unfolds, know that you're gonna be okay. Life is gonna continue. Right? We live in the United States of America. You actually have to try hard to go hungry and homeless. Like, resources are out there. So kind of going back to what Julian was saying about risk, like, really, we live in a country of low risk, right? You're gonna be okay regardless of what happens to your business. Oh, my favorite. I suck at this. I'm no good at this. So a wonderful story. I was maybe 3 months into this business, just trying to get out to networking events. I'm pretty introverted. I like people, just in small doses. I went to my first CEP after hours. It was in the storage units out on 200. And I showed up. I didn't know anybody. I'm sitting there with a bottle of water, just kind of standing in the corner, looking very uncomfortable. Everybody's hugging everybody and shaking hands and having a good time. And I swear to you, I had a flashback of 7th grade. Karen Sadie turned me down for a dance. And I ran out of 7th grade dance because I felt so bad. And I swear to you, I had that thought in my head, and I'm 55 years old, and I ran out of that networking event. I sat in my car and just shaking my head, and I texted my coach, I'm 55 years old, and I just ran out of a networking event, like I'm back in 7th grade. And her only response was, next time, bring a friend. And that was a very valuable lesson to me. So that was kind of where I shifted from these uncomfortable events, these things that are uncomfortable for me. I don't suck at it. I need more practice. Like, I'm not good at it. And it's the same thing with any aspect of your business. If you're not good at your books, right, the only way to get better at doing books is to do books, right? And to be okay with cutting yourself some slack. That my first probably 3 to 6 months of networking, I was uncomfortable at every single one of them. And then I shifted. There was some, right, my perspective shifted. And that perspective shifted from, Josh alluded on to it earlier. I don't talk about products and services at a networking event, right? Networking events for me are not about sales pitches. It's about building relationships. When I got that out of my head, that I'm not at a networking event being a used car salesman, I'm just out there to have a good time, things went a lot better for me, because it isn't. It's not about the products and services for me. And the other thing, a very valuable lesson that I learned is, after every networking event, after every 101, after every proposal, and after every assessment, we do assessments, and then after every prospect win that I got, every single time, for probably the first 9 months, I took notes and I asked myself during that networking event or 101 or whatever, what did I do right? Where could I have improved myself? What question did they ask that I stumbled on? And what question should I have asked them to further the conversation? So for me, I don't look at it like I suck at it. Kind of the cure to that mentality of I suck at it or I'm not good at it is I shift that now from that was a terrible experience to what was I supposed to learn there? So I'm a real big kind of believer that the schools have it backwards. In school, you learn all these lessons and then you take your test. And I'm a strong believer that in life it's backwards. You get a test, you get a tough time, something difficult comes into your life, and you don't know what the answer is. You don't know what the lesson you were supposed to learn until you get through that. So there is a lot to be said about life begins outside your comfort zone. If you're in your comfort zone, Phil Smith's personal belief, if you're in your comfort zone, you're not learning. And if you're not learning, you're not living. Prospect rejected me in my personal, right? So that I'm a pretty sensitive guy. I don't like to be confronted. I don't necessarily like to be rejected. I don't think any human being does. But one of the things that I kind of learned early on, and there's a book called it's a Toltec book. Anyway, one of them is never take it personally. Even if you think it's personal, it's not personal. So one of the things I learned early in my corporate life was not to take anything personal, right? So if somebody reaches out to me, somebody's, calling me names or whatever, a lot of times I'm just collateral damage to their own internal suffering, right? They have a dialogue in their head that thinks that if they reach out to me, they're going to feel better by putting me down, right? So there are times where people do attack you personally, and I still choose not to take it personally. It's a choice, right? I love the quote that what other people think of me is none of my business, right? To thy own self be true. Be okay with who I am, and I'm going to be okay with who you are. Business is about making money. I think you could probably get some arguments here, but I'm a true believer that if you're following your passion, if you're engaged in a worthy cause, if you're truly out there to help people, being profitable and making money is a byproduct of living that right life, of doing the right things in life. And I've heard it before, and it sounds kind of, and it's an interesting concept, is that money is actually the ultimate enhancer. So if you're evil and you have a lot of money, you're going to enhance evil in the world. If you're good and you have a lot of money, you're going to enhance good in the world. I'm kind of a strong believer in that. I'm not focused on making a lot of money. We got to pay our bills. We got to make a profit. But I'm a strong believer that money should not, it can be a goal, but it doesn't necessarily need to be your driving force. I think that money has a tendency of being kind of short-lived. It's the short game, right? So I can take a client and I can make $50 off of them. But if I treat them right and give them a right price, the right service, chances are he's going to continue to call me back, and I'm going to make more money because I treated him right. So I'm sitting here talking about all this kind of brain trash stuff, and you're thinking to yourself, like, it's great. Keep in mind that it's been 14 years of a lot of internal work, a lot of introspection, and by no means am I perfect at it, but I can give you some tips. Number one is meditation, and a lot of people think meditation is sitting on a pillow with crossed legs and staring at a candle. Not necessarily. I love the definition of meditation is replacing 1,000 thoughts with one, which is just right. How do I quiet my mind? So crochet, bicycling, weightlifting, fishing, you know what works for you. And if you don't, get out there and experience, right? Kind of mess with that. So it's a matter of quieting your mind. And what that does, what meditation does for me is it puts a little pause between when the little old lady cuts me off and when I'm screaming at the windshield. And that little pause gives me an opportunity to make a choice. Because before I started meditation, or when I slack off on my meditation, the little old lady cuts me off and I'm screaming at her before I got a chance to make a choice, right? So meditation has allowed me to be reactive to things going on on my life and not reactive. That pause for me is vital. And kind of going along with the meditation is quiet time and alone time. I think that's vitally important to be alone in your own head, right? We're told in recovery between your ears is a dark alley and you have no business going there alone. But it comes back to intentions, like quiet my mind and the answers come to me. The other point is to set a good morning routine. I should have put good between set and morning. If you're the type that the alarm goes off and you hit the snooze button 3 times, and then it goes off the 4th time and you roll over and you pick up your phone and you look for your Facebook feed and you check the news, and then you get up and the kids are screaming and you're fighting to get into the bathroom. That's just a terrible way to start your day. So for me, a very good morning routine. I get up at the same time. It doesn't matter if it's the weekday or weeknight, right? I get up at the same time. I have that solid routine. And I don't pick up my phone for at least the first hour of the day. Very beneficial to me. Attitude of gratitude. Again, you're right. Think negative thoughts. Don't expect to live a positive life. And that gratitude is not necessarily on the big things. So part of my morning routine, part of my quietness, I start out my gratitude list with things like I woke up alive. And there's a million people that didn't wake up this morning. I have an opportunity to eat food and drink water today. There are millions that are not going to have an opportunity to eat today, and I'm not one of them. I live in a country that allows me the freedom to do what I want. I don't live in a third world with ammunition shells going over my head. That starts out the gratitude, and then it can go in my early recovery. All my gratitude was about material things. I'm glad I have a car, got to have a place to live, and that's shifted over the years to more like I'm glad I got my health. I'm glad that I have a wife that loves me, right? More internal things. And kind of one thing that we're missing here during the pandemic is to talk to your tribe. And that tribe, there's a lot of my tribe members here in this call right now. It's important that you reach out. And I think it's been told several times here, right? You got to know you got to be smart enough to know when you're stupid and to reach out. And it's not always about money, right? So Julie and I have had some really good conversations, and we have never done business together, but it's about helping each other. We're all going through this together. So I can really see there's a lot of benefits to that. The self-care, again, kind of like taking care of it. And then I love the quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Going to shift gears. Wow. Okay, I'm talking way too much. Shifting gears a little bit about systems. Julia mentioned it. Stop working on the business and start working in the business. Really hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you're at. So part of the franchise system when I went through franchise training was to kind of establish those business systems. And I wanted to share with you a little bit. First one is a mission statement. And I highly advise, a lot of people don't do this. I would suggest that if you're in a small business, you spend some time with this. A mission statement is nothing more than why does your business exist and what are the goals of the business. And I'm going to share mine with you all. We provide responsive IT support and technology services for our clients, yada, yada, yada. You can read that. But that's what our primary purpose is. If I'm doing something that is outside of that mission statement, that needs to be a conscientious effort. So nowhere in there does that talk about building decks, right? That's not part of my mission. That's kind of important for you as a guidepost, but also as you bring on employees, is trying to get all of your employees to face the same direction. The second set of structures that we talked about in franchise training are core values. And core values are important to get down in writing. So none of this, you can have it in your head all you want. If it's not in writing, it's not going to happen. If it's in writing and you're seeing it every day, your ability to apply that's going to be a little bit easier. On the wall, on top of every one of my employees, is the core values of CMIT. And the core values is what is our beliefs. And again, I'm not going to go through my core values. They're up there to read for you. But basically, right, take care of the clients, have some integrity, keep important things important, strive to be wise and know your limits. So those are kind of the basics. When I have an employee and they come to me and they're like, I don't know if I should do this or I should do that, 90% of the time the core values answer that, right? Should I sell a client a used computer? The answer to that is no, right? Do what's right always, right? Yes, it's more expensive for the client, but it's the right thing to do because you don't know where that used computer came from. So the next thing is to talk about our goals. And I love what Josh said early on about goals. Kind of different mindsets when it's about talking to goals. Some say set realistic goals. Some say to set realistic goals and multiply it by 1,000. So there's, to me, I think that goal setting is a very personal thing. Some people need to set goals that are realistic and achievable so they get that sense of accomplishment when they reach them. Other people like Josh and Grant Cardone, they feel like if you set your goals realistically, you're going to slow down at the end. And I totally agree with that. But you should know whether if you're very goal oriented, and you don't meet a goal and you know that that's going to screw you in the head, screw your head up because you said you were going to do 10 and you only did 8, then I would highly suggest you set those realistically. In the franchise system, no, I'm sorry, I was clicking on the wrong sides. So I'm going to spend just 1 second, I'm sorry, looking at your 1 second reading my mission statement and then my core values. So again, mission statements are where you're going. Core values are what characteristics are going to get you to that mission statement. And then for goal setting, we use this thing called a vision tracking organizer. I have this filled out. We fill it out every quarter within the franchise. Basically, we're setting goals, both demographically, right? Your metrics are going to be different in your company, but I can tell you that this is very beneficial to see where I'm, like, if I'm not meeting my goals, where am I off track? Where can I go? What can I do to make it better, quicker, faster? I think it's very vital to do this every quarter. Again, it's part of that working on your business, not in your business. So my last little kind of tidbits of wisdom for any small businesses. There's a concept, it's called return on time invested. So if you're doing something over and over and over again in your business, think of a way to automate it or outsource it. So for me, I don't know marketing. I'm not good at marketing, right? To me, it's very time consuming with very little ROI. I have no business doing my own marketing. Hence the reason why I have a marketing firm. Leverage the people around you, leverage your tribe. I guarantee you that just about everybody on this call would love to sit down and have a Zoom meeting and discuss their strengths with you and to help you, because they know that that's going to come back to help them. Another kind of issue when we talk about tasks, so we got 1,000 tasks on here. How do I prioritize them? It used to be by urgency and importance. Urgency are those things that need to be done quickly. Important are those things that are important, but maybe not so much urgently. And then the third factor that I like to throw in there is significance. How did performing this task, is it going to further my business? And stay the path. Like I think owning a small business, you've heard it over and over again. Owning a small business is not a short-term project. You're in it for the long haul. And some days you're going to be dead, and some days you're going to be good, and some days you're not going to be, and you just keep plugging away. And again, use the herd. Surround yourself with good people. And then look at where you can outsourcing. A lot of people don't want to outsource because that's money. But here's the deal: if you're paying yourself $100 an hour, theoretically, and you're doing something that's somebody could do for $10 an hour, you're losing money. So I see that with bookkeeping. I see that with marketing. I have a virtual receptionist that answers the phone, right? I'm getting paid. I want to get paid more. I can't afford to be doing those low-level jobs as the owner of the business.